Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience, the only show on TV that is even better than stuffing yourself with turkey. Today is Sunday, November 20th, 2011, just a few days before the big American Thanksgiving holiday, to be followed by endless streams of some other holiday that I don't really care about. I'm Russell Glasser, your host, and with me today is Tracie Harris.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Good. You may notice if you're watching on TV that I am scruffier than normal. That's because I am, in fact, observing No Shave November on purpose. It's apparently to raise awareness of prostate cancer and other men's diseases. That happens to be one that my grandfather died of, so I figure I should go ahead and observe that. Let's see, first show I've done since Linnea and I got back from our honeymoon in Orlando. And just a big shout out to Mike in the bar that we went to, and the great time that we had with all the Orlando fans of the Atheist Experience in between partying up at the parks. So we are a live call-in public access television show, and you know, it's weird. Today we have 4 cameras where we normally have 2, and I don't know which one to look at.
I don't think any of them have lights on.
So if I look kind of like Michelle Bachmann, sort of, you know, I'm talking over here, I'm sorry about that.
There we go.
So the Atheist Experience is a live call-in show in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are also available through live streaming video at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is atheist-experience.com. And we're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit organization which you can find at www.atheist-community.org. You can also check out the unofficial show blog. No, wait, it's really the official show blog now, right? It's
I don't know that.
freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. You can also email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you check out our fine community website, be sure to check out our other 2 shows, The Nonprofits and Godless Bitches. 2 audio-only podcasts catering to the diverse niches of the atheist community at large, and also available through the ACA website. If you do enjoy the show today and you happen to be located in Austin, Texas, please do come and join us for dinner afterwards, beginning at around 6 at El Arroyo on 1624 West 5th Street. And is there any break in the schedule that I should be telling people about? I don't think so.
No, I think it's...
All right. I see your computer has come back up.
I'm trying.
Do you want me to stall a little more?
I mean, do you have any items or not?
Unfortunately not.
No, I just, if I can just, well, what I can do is while I'm logging in, hopefully this will...
I can actually, I blogged about this. I wanted to talk a little bit about going to the bar at...
Do it.
In Orlando. It was a lot of fun for us, and not just because we were sort of getting to flaunt our minor, incredibly minor celebrity status, but because atheists in places that don't have sort of a designated organization that gives people an excuse to meet up, like this one, like we always go to dinner after the show. When people don't have that, I'm sure that a lot of people who are watching the show know what I'm talking about, because they write into us and they tell us that they're all really isolated. They feel like, you know, I'm the only one in my family who is an atheist. I can't really talk to people without it turning into a huge fight. I don't have atheist friends. And what was really great about just getting together with these people at a designated time and basically announcing it all over Facebook, 20 people showed up, and they're all atheists, and they're all just delighted to have a chance to talk to each other, because, you know, they don't get a chance to just drink and talk and chat about the things as they see it and mostly have people to agree with them. And while I'm not saying that people should only talk to people who agree with them all the time, it can be such a positive and wonderful experience, as I know, because we keep doing this every, a couple of times a month. So I just want to reiterate the call for atheists to, make their own meetup groups. The atheist community of Austin started up with an ad in the paper. So people should do more of that.
Well, I think the other point, though, is what you mentioned earlier, is the idea that when you're in an environment where every time you open your mouth, you just get criticized. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's like you have no format at all to discuss anything, and you're just surrounded by people who don't want to hear it or who just want to argue with you, and you never have a chance to express yourself, and people end up feeling so repressed in that situation.
Exactly.
And I saw something like this recently on a strand where somebody had actually come to the community and asked for support. Basically said, my family, I feel like I can't open my mouth. I'm okay defending my views, and they were doing a really good job defending their views, but they were saying it just gets tiresome to have several people constantly jumping and harping on everything I say. I can't even open my mouth about something.
Yeah, I like to argue, but I don't like to argue all the time.
But what happens is then you end up just saying to yourself, I just can't even say what I think, ever.
Right.
Because who are you going to say it to? You're either going to fight about it or you're going to not say it. And so when people finally went there, and he did get like an atheist community to come and sort of gain some friends and things, mm-hmm. I know one of the family members made a comment to the effect of, I don't know why this was necessary because I don't think there was a problem. And it's like, okay, well then clearly, yeah, well you don't really know what it's like to be in the situation when you're not that person who can't open their mouth about anything. And boy, does it change things when suddenly there are atheists there besides just him. And they get rebuttals from people besides just the one person they're used to dogpiling on. It really changes the dynamic.
Right. I mean, it takes a little of both. You need someone to bounce your ideas off of and have them listen without fighting you. And
right.
You need to have some sort of adversarial relationship
right.
in order to make sure that the things you think aren't just, you accept them by default because there's no criticism of them.
But I guess what I find is that when a person gets that kind of support, and there are more than just that one atheist defending those views, mm-hmm. the anti-theistic views, you see immediately a change in the dynamic of the theistic response, which is just like, well, I don't understand why you're so contentious. And it's like, wow, so it was okay when there was 3 of you dogpiling on this one guy who had nobody that agreed with him on the strand. But now that he's got people that agree with him on the strand, suddenly you don't like that so much.
They start turning into tone trolls all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they can get
It's easy to get away with, especially when it's in your family. But when you have
right.
to defend your views outside your family where they've been normalized, it becomes a little more difficult when you're trying to explain those views that are crazy but normal in your family.
Yeah, and,
to somebody
and we
outside
get those
of
kind
that.
of messages a lot because to a lot of theists, we are the only voice of atheism that they hear. So when they hear about our show, they're like, why do you bother doing this?
Right.
You don't have to have a show on atheism.
Right. But they're not the ones that actually understand that the one atheist in their family feels completely isolated and marginalized.
Right.
Because they think the person doesn't say anything, so there's no problem. Well, they don't say anything because you've silenced them and repressed them into submission. And they're not happy, but they don't want to upset you because they love you because you're their family.
Yeah. So I know that there are atheists everywhere. There are some people who are just like you guys who are, not saying anything to anyone because it's too uncomfortable. And so the challenge is just finding them.
Right.
Because you'll really enjoy yourself if you finally get to talk to some like-minded people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
That's your public service announcement.
And it's a worthy one. Okay, real quickly, I just wanted to highlight an email that we got that was a lot of fun. A young woman who contacted us, and she said that she was talking to some of her friends that enjoyed playing with a Ouija board. And the friends of hers, apparently, at least one of them, I guess, believes this actually works. And if you're not familiar with the concept of a Ouija board, it's just basically a movable little clear object that goes over a board that has like a yes, a no, letters of the alphabet, and numbers 0 through 9. and you ask it questions, and presumably, I suppose it's like spirits or ghosts that then channel through the glass as you touch it, and that makes it move around the board and spell answers and give you answers, and you're communicating with spirits or with the dead is supposed to be, I guess, the idea. And for people who take it real seriously, it's a Parker Brothers game, even though I know it's based on older models of, handmade things. And the Parker Brothers game suggests a 2-player mode, which, get more people to play, sure, because you're selling boards.
Have like 4 people crowded around.
Yeah, you get multiple people to touch it, but
and of course, the more people you have, the more diffusion of responsibility there is. So
Yeah,
you
I
can
didn't move
more
it.
plausibly say, yeah, whoa, that's so
yeah.
creepy. That wasn't me
Right.
directing it towards.
And there are actually phenomenon where people move things, they don't know they move things, and you can demonstrate that they are moving them. And it's interesting. Somebody asked me one time, how would you prove that it doesn't work? And I said, how about nobody puts a hand on it? That would be a big boost, at least, in that something's strange about this thing if people weren't touching it when it moved. But the girl wrote, and she said, I'm thinking of a way to do an experiment. She goes, what if we blindfolded people and asked them questions and then recorded the answers? Like, she goes, I thought that would be a good test, and I wanted to tell my friend, like, let's try this. But she goes, do you think that would be a good idea? And I said, yeah. I said, in reality, I'd like to see them really blinded, like have something in front of them to know that you can't, like, see through the blindfold or whatever. But,
Right.
sometimes you can see through a blindfold. But also, I said, it would be good if, I'm thinking of the Parker Brothers game, and I said, it's too bad you can't mix up the letters. Well, apparently, they're doing the homespun board, and so they were able to mix up their letters, and her friend that believes this believes it based on the one player thing. So they're saying one person touches it and it moves. So she's doing a one-player thing. She has this board, and she actually mixed up the letters, and she got 3 of her little friends one of whom said they believed it, one of whom said they thought it was crap, and one of whom said they didn't care. She says she asked the skeptic to go into a room by himself and made sure he was blindfolded. I gave him a Ouija board and scrambled numbers and letters. I asked him to ask it basic questions, and she has like a little list of questions that they all answered that was a birthday, a date of graduation, a hair color, a middle name, and a deep fear.
I just thought of a flaw in this experiment.
Yeah.
They have a homespun board, but at Parker Brothers, they dip each one in ectoplasm on the assembly line. So, this is not a valid test, actually.
Well, the other thing, too, is, you could ask it questions like, for example, about the person administering the test, or answers with questions with answers in envelopes that nobody has seen except for the person doing, administering the test. So you could do it in a way that the answers to the questions are unknown, which would also be useful. There's a lot of ways you could mix this up. But she actually sent me her results, and she said that for the first one, I guess this is for the skeptic, for the birthday, they got ENEOCKWL, or that might be a 1. For the graduation date, they got LEVWTOR. For the middle name, they got NTETF. And for the big fear, they got RWIFJSO. So then when they tried with the believer, they did it the same way, blindfolded, mixed up the letters, and they were asked to provide a birth date, and they got U9483JFN, which, of course, at least they got numbers.
That could have been translated as
a couple
a
numbers
birthday.
are in there. A graduation date was JEMDEI. The middle name was EINDZQ, and of course I'm assuming that that's not a middle name. The fear was MEP592, and unless that's like some new street drug or something, I don't know. But
That's
then
pretty
the person
scary.
that was indifferent to the board, that didn't care one way or the other, said for a birthday they got OMEKTD. For the graduation date, MDN375. For the middle name, they got MWVR. For the fear, they got PVU854H.
Yeah. Penn and Teller also did a similar test to this on bullshit.
Okay.
And in their version, they didn't do anything as complicated as scrambling letters around. They simply showed the board to the guy, blindfolded him, and then, without telling him, flipped the board upside down.
Ah, interesting. Well, anyway, she said she feels that it shows that the board is the answers are nonsensical, and she said that this was not a surprise to the skeptic. It was a surprise when she revealed the information to the believer, and the indifferent person said she said they were mildly curious. She thinks that it's caused by the idiometer effect, which I guess is the thing we mentioned earlier about you move things and you don't realize you're moving them.
Right.
And subconsciously you're going to divine an answer. But that was her test, and she was just like open to suggestions for improving it or whatever. And the reason that I wanted to highlight this was that for me this was sort of an interesting thing that a young person came to us and said, I would like to run this test, and if I run this test, will you be willing to talk about results, and is it something that you would be interested in on the show? And I said, of course, let us know what you do, how you do it, what results you get. And I said, of course, if you get really surprising results, we're going to want more information. Mm-hmm. Obviously we would want to if anybody came back and it was just some really surprising results, I think I would want to see this, for example, repeated. I would want to have more controls in place, like to see, what's going on here. Is there a problem with the methodology, or is it valid? You'd be very interested if you had something that could truly demonstrate that a Ouija board was actually in touch with supernatural beings that could divine answers to questions. I mean, you just think of, you could get like cures for cancer or something. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that if such a test was possible, somebody would already have run it by James Randi. But the thing about science is that it should be duplicatable by anyone.
Right, so. Which is cool because that's what this is. And what's really great about it is this is an experiment that someone came up with on their own, just thought it up and said, how could I test this? And I would like to encourage other people to do this for fun, to say, if someone believes in something strange like this and it's something that you have access to, think about how you could tell whether something is really working and whether it's not working. How can you test it? And what kind of flaws might there be in a test that you do devise? And just have a good time with it. I think it's a fun little exercise in trying to think critically about how you could determine how something works or how it doesn't work. And that was pretty much just the topic. I just thought she did a really cool thing and wanted to highlight it.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad that young people are thinking scientifically like that. So we're going to go to calls now, right?
Sure.
We're going to start with William in North Carolina. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
All right, you?
Good.
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay, what's up?
Not much.
Got you on the phone. What's your topic?
Talking, doing an atheist show.
The Prop 26 measure over in Mississippi, the little new anti-abortion rule, or I guess even more stricter than anti-abortion, I should say.
Yep, failed last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did not
barely.
pass. Thank goodness.
I mean, that's a good thing that it failed, but it's still a little concerning that it even, it only failed by 58 to 42, and just even that got introduced is kind of a little disheartening too.
Right. I mean, the way that they defined personhood, it was not only extending to, it was not only poised to outlaw abortion, but also to sort of block some of the most common forms of birth control out there, which is ridiculous.
Right, like I said, most of it, the pill was the main one that, it didn't say in the law, but it could be interpreted that the birth control pill was next too, and that's just...
Right. So, that it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
That's
well,
a good news tidbit.
Yes. Hooray. I like good news. Thanks for calling. Oops. Neil in Dallas. Are you there?
I am. Hello.
How are you?
Hi.
Just fine. I've watched y'all's show on YouTube and on the Ustream quite a bit, and this is my first time calling. I really appreciate the work you guys do. I myself am an atheist.
Thanks.
And I've enjoyed the program you guys put on.
Thank you.
I need to apologize in advance for the clumsiness of this question. It's going to be hard to ask because it actually deals with the overlap of two minorities. So, in essence, a little backstory, I guess. I'm a very avid firearms enthusiast. I like to shoot. I used to shoot pistol and rifle competitively, and I really enjoy those activities. one thing I've noticed, though, whenever I go to the range, for instance, there's a lot of, Christianity is very prevalent in people that enjoy that sport. And, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But it is kind of interesting to go to any gun store, gun show, shooting range, and you'll see, Christian symbols on the cars. I've seen men and women have, crosses burned into their holsters or engraved into their firearms. And I was just wondering, what is your take on that? Why do you think Christianity is so prevalent in the firearms community?
I think I can probably answer.
No, I mean, if you have my first thought, I guess, is just that the nation is majority Christian anyway, so I don't know I don't know about demographic correlations in that particular
community. I'm also thinking that what you're seeing is not so much a cause and effect relationship as an association, because both sort of religious fundamentalism and gun culture have a tendency to be associated with right-wing politics. And whether that's justified or not, there's kind of a psychological phenomenon in politics where people aren't so much picking a side based on their initial beliefs about things, as they are sort of jumping into a side as if they were football teams. And then because of that association and because they want to root for their team, and they also spend a lot of time hanging out with people who are also with that team, they tend to adopt the other positions that kind of go along with that. So, for instance, somebody who was already right-wing might be drawn to conservative politics, and then they might become more of a gun enthusiast because of it. I personally am an atheist and generally liberal. Gun stuff is one ththing where I'm sort of less liberal than in a lot of other areas. But I suspect that that's why you see that correlation there. What do you think?
Okay, so you think it's more of like what you just said, a correlation in the fact that if you agree with this aspect, the number of people, like if we were to do a Venn diagram, the number of people that agree with this also happen to be in the same subset that agree with.
Right. I mean, and also, like, why should Christianity be so associated with like very right-wing economic politics? There's no particular reason that I can see, and of course there are a lot of economically right-wing people in the atheist community, but not as many. But there are smaller numbers.
Okay.
So, that association is also there, and there's this sort of cluster of beliefs that people group up around. And that's all I can think.
Okay. Well, that's a very interesting answer. You've given me something to think about.
Okay.
Did you have an idea yourself, or?
I'm not really sure. I have noticed that I know a lot, in separate observations, I've known several churches where, they form shooting groups. And, I have no problem with it. I'm just curious as to why this does seem to be not only prevalent as far as, like what you had said, there's a large number of Christians in the general population, so Christian shooters shouldn't be a surprise, but also the number of not only Christians, but those that, actively wear it literally on their sleeve or their holsters, as it might be. And I was just wondering, is there some sort of common trait to this? Is something being selected for that, built this kind of behavior? Where does this come from? I'm not really too sure. This is Texas, where, we're in the South, so Christianity is quite a big deal here.
Let me try to put this as diplomatically as I can, but do the Christians who enjoy firearms seem to be more enthusiastic about the violent aspects of it?
No, I have,
in general.
and I appreciate how you put that. I have met a handful of people like that, but the vast majority that I've experienced are not. They're just normal, level-headed people that happen to enjoy shooting and have a religious faith. And again, I have no problem with that. Most of these people I've encountered are not militant in any way, and there's nothing like what you'd be suggesting. I was just curious as to why those two traits would seem to go together as much as I've observed.
Okay, I appreciate the answer.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right,
Sure.
Thanks. I don't know. Do you want to rush right into this Nicholas guy, or no? I'm gonna go on to Anthony in Sacramento.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
Okay, oh, fantastic. Hey, I was wondering what was your guys' opinion on like the religious leaders of the world as far as what you think they actually believe that there is a God, or do you think they're just going along with the lie, or they actually believe there is God? Just kind of a curious question.
What do you think?
I don't think there's any way to know.
I don't think there's any way to know either. I think that.
I mean, clearly it's an easy way to make a lot of money if you're not sincere, but also that doesn't mean that you can't be sincere and make a lot of money because you believe it. I mean, I actually was on vacation, I guess, this past week, and I ran into somebody just completely randomly who does grave divining, and I guarantee you they believed it. They were hot to show me how it worked and do a demonstration for me, and I got to videotape it and ask some questions, and I'm totally sure they're sincere. If a person like that were to do it and make money, I don't know if people charge for this or what, but yeah, I know that people used to charge for looking for water with divining. Some people believe things and make a lot of money with them. I mean, there's certainly preachers that are making a living doing this, so I don't know why it would be hard to accept that some make a pretty decent living, to put it mildly, I suppose, doing it as well, and that they believe it and they're just also into the money.
I think you probably can't be entirely convincing at it unless you are at least able to convince yourself to a certain extent that some of it's true. And I've read a lot about people who tried to take the Amazing Randy's challenge, who thought they were psychics, and they were genuinely surprised,
Yeah.
or appeared to be so when the results came out. And I also think that, just like we were saying earlier, that you really start to second guess yourself if you're, say, an atheist who doesn't have any atheist friends and there's no one you can talk to. If you're so immersed in a culture where you're like Billy Graham, speaking to adoring crowds of thousands all the time, and they're telling you what miracles you've brought in their lives, and they really believe it, I bet it would be hard for him not to.
It sort of reminds me of The Man Who Would Be King, the story.
I don't know that one, actually.
Yeah, it's a Kipling story, but the guy, they go in there and people think that he's some sort of god or king come back, and at first they're like, oh, this is a way we could really clean up, because these people think that we're, a god or this king, or, come back, and eventually he starts getting so much praise, and the people start pointing out all these similarities, and the guy who's pretending to be the reincarnation of this, he starts to think, well, maybe I am. There's all these weird coincidences, and he gets sold on it.
Yeah, sure, you go with confirmation bias, and suddenly... So yeah, I think they, even if they don't believe it initially, I think generally they probably manage to convince themselves.
How do you think, different, let's say, different religions or different denominations, I mean, how do you think they justify, their religion being the right one when there's so much done?
The others are all deluded.
Theirs is the right one.
I ask that all the time, and I always get sort of the most common answer is just complete dismissal. It's like, well, they don't have X, Y, and Z that my religion has.
You have to remember. Well, you have to remember that when a person is indoctrinated, from the time they're little, basically you are told over and over again about all these obvious faults in everyone else's religion. So you're told, and not always correctly either. I mean, it's funny because there are obvious faults in all these religions, and yet when you're in this church, they still build straw men, even though it's not that necessary. Maybe they build the straw men in order to point out errors that are not going to be associated too closely with your own religion. I don't know, but I know that, I was taught, for example, that, Buddhists worship Buddha like a god, and, there was all these things, like reincarnation is so silly, and it was all these things that they would focus on that were different than what we believe, to say, well, that's clearly wrong, and that's clearly silly to believe that, but you never really You never really pointed the gun too closely at anything in those other religions that seemed like your religion. And if you struck a thing in another religion that seems like your religion, you say, well, there's something that, everybody else recognizes because it's true.
Yeah.
And so they see that, but it's still warped because it's wrong. So we have the right religion, and we see that a God exists. And so these Muslims over here see that a God exists, but they have this wrong, warped version of it, is all.
And then you have sort of New Agey religions like
Yeah.
Baha'i that just say, oh, every religion has an element of truth.
Yeah, even though they all disagree.
Even the self-conscious,
Yeah, even the ones
mutually
that say that everybody
contradictory
else's
ones.
religion is wrong.
Yeah,
those are
right.
right too. So
How about this? To touch on that last caller's call about a lot of Christians being gun enthusiasts and whatnot, and it always kind of cracks me up how, or actually I just kind of come to this.
Doesn't really fit with
rather
turn the other
recently.
cheek, huh?
Well, how we will send someone to war, Christian soldiers will go to war, and we're not the only Christians on the planet. There are other countries. Christians have killed other Christians
Sure.
in war. How do you in your head, how do you justify that?
they were
It
the
just blows
wrong
my mind.
Christians.
They're not true Christians.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just right.
Okay.
So, and one more thing. Oh man, when you're trying to talk to another person, it's a conversation until they disagree with you. And once that point comes, yeah, you're right. You get the bombardment, and that's usually what it is. It's a bombardment of what they believe, and you're feel like you're the outcast.
Yeah.
And it could be whether it's religion or politics. So, man, yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah, people do this to their kids, and they don't even know that's what they're doing. That their children
Right.
can't talk to them, and they don't even know that that's occurring.
Right. Well, hey guys, very good. Nice to talk to you, and keep rocking and rolling.
Thank you.
Thanks. We will. Yeah. See ya. Nicholas in New Jersey, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess I have a sort of logical issue with atheism. Well, it may be a non-issue. Maybe you'll tell me that it's a non-issue. But there is the problem of the atheist claims that the theist has the burden of proof entirely, and that he simply just doesn't believe in something. Actually, I'm not sure how you would characterize it, but in any case, the atheist claims to sort of have a vacuous position. There's no content position, and therefore the burden of proof does not fall on him.
Well, it's. I would put it as a null hypothesis,
Yeah.
basically.
And it does
It's-
depend on the atheist.
Yeah, I mean, some people claim to have absolute certainty that there is no God. I happen not to be one of them, but there are some.
Okay. But traditionally, sort of, atheism has had a strategic advantage in the sense that the theist is, in fact, making an existential claim. He's saying that there is something that exists, and therefore, some evidence is required. And the atheist, in many cases, is not making an existential claim, and therefore doesn't require evidence for his position.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't seem to sit right with me. The reason being that, I guess I'm a stalwart of two-valued logic, right? If you have a proposition, God exists, and you negate that proposition, and you say that the negation of the proposition is true, then the original proposition has to be false. In other words,
Correct.
you are making a claim. You are saying that.
Yes, that person you just described is making a claim. I would agree.
Okay, so how would you characterize? How would you evade that particular objection?
I think, though, what's happening is what you're calling negation. It does occur. There are atheists that would negate that God exists. There are others who simply say they don't accept that.
All right. I'm going to ask
Well,
you something.
that's strictly speaking nonsense, though. I mean, you have a proposition. Okay, for example, I could say.
Let me give you
Wait,
another
wait,
example.
let's let him
Okay.
talk for a minute.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you letting me talk?
Yes,
go
please,
ahead,
please
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay. So I mean, I could say, I'm an agnostic about whether or not there's an odd number of blades of grass in my yard right now. But
Okay,
the fact
that's
of
a
the
good
matter
example.
is that there's either an odd number or there's not an odd number.
Correct.
It's okay to be an agnostic, but to take a stronger position than agnosticism would, in my view, be atheism, and that would be.
Well, wait a minute. Atheism and agnosticism are not mutually exclusive positions, and neither is theism and agnosticism. You can be an agnostic theist or an agnostic atheist. It's not like they're not on the same line.
Well, you could be a doxastic theist, for example, and then you could be like an axiological atheist. So you could.
Right, but I mean, I think you're trying to pigeonhole atheism into something that we don't agree with, because I'm an atheist and I don't say I know for sure there is no God. I just say
I don't believe there is.
I don't have a belief. Just like I would say I don't have a belief that there are an even number of blades of grass in your yard. There could be, but I'd like somebody to actually do the work of counting them before I commit to one belief.
The point is, you can say, I don't believe there is an odd number of blades of grass in your yard, but I also don't believe there is an even number. I have no belief on this issue because we don't know, and I see no reason to put a bet on it. Like, I don't see a reason to make a belief. I don't see a reason to assert either is true when I can wait for the information.
I guess it depends on how seriously you take two-valued logic. I mean, I think that, if you're a realist and you maintain the principle of bivalence, you don't just believe, but you know that there's either an even or odd number of blades of grass.
Correct. No, that is correct.
Yeah, and just the same way, I know that there's either a God or there's no God. But where I diverge from a theist is that the theist doesn't say, I know one or the other is true. The theist says, I know for sure, or, I have a firm belief that there is a God.
I would like to go ahead.
I don't have that.
Can I just stick with this blades of grass? I think the blades of grass thing is fine. If you were to say to me, there's an odd number of blades of grass in my yard, and I say, how could you possibly make that claim? I don't believe you. And you say, oh, so then you're saying there's an even number. Well, that's completely misrepresenting what I just said. Just because I don't believe you that there is an odd number, it doesn't mean, you haven't made your case. You haven't supported that claim, and you haven't demonstrated to me how you know or how you could know that there's an odd number of blades of grass in your yard. So when I say I don't accept that claim because it's not supported, that certainly doesn't mean that I'm now claiming there's an even number.
Well, no, I think there's a slight misunderstanding. I'm not saying that if you reject, if you say I don't know, then you automatically...
No, I'm saying I don't believe it. I don't accept as true that there is an odd number of blades of grass because I have no reason to accept it's true.
But it could be true. Okay, so there's a couple issues here. One is that it could be true independently of whether or not you suspend belief.
Correct, but I have no reason to believe it, so I don't. You've given me no reason to believe it. You've simply asserted it without evidence.
Can I give you a more...
I didn't assert it.
The theist. I'm not talking about a theist in the example. So a theist says God exists. I believe that God exists. They say, I accept it as true that there are an odd number of blades of grass in the yard. And I'm saying, I don't know why you accept that as true. How would you even know? Why would you assert that either it's true that there's an odd or an even number? I don't accept either as true because we'd have to figure it out.
I mean, there's no other possibility. It has to be odd or even.
Right, but I don't have to believe that it's true that there is an odd number, and I don't have to believe that it's true that there's an even number. I can say I don't believe either because there's not sufficient evidence to demonstrate it one way or another.
Right, and I didn't say you had to believe one or the other.
Right, and if I don't believe there's an odd number, and we're using that as an analogy for God exists, that makes me an atheist, but I certainly haven't asserted a claim of my own.
I guess, hold on, if I may interject. I think that you're maybe a little confused about why I brought up the odd and even example.
Okay.
Not to sort of bulldoze you into a certain position, but just to say that the proposition that there is an odd number of blades of grass in my yard right now has to be either true or false.
Correct.
That's correct.
There's no truth value in between those.
Correct.
Similarly, the proposition God exists has to be true or false.
Correct.
Now, if you want to be an agnostic and completely suspend belief, then I doff.
Well, but agnosticism is not about belief. That's what I'm trying to say. You keep bringing agnosticism into it. There's no reason to do that. We're talking about atheism and theism. So what I'm saying...
But that's precisely, you're begging the question. That's precisely what I'm saying, is you're mischaracterizing the atheist position.
Can I actually...
No, but an atheist, would you agree that an atheist is someone who does not believe a God exists?
I would say that an atheist is somebody who accepts the negation of the proposition God exists.
So if somebody does not believe a God exists, you're saying that's not an atheist.
Because you're looking at it from a psychological point of view regarding belief.
No, I'm saying that by definition.
I'm looking at it from a logical point of view.
I'm saying that if you ask, even by common definition, if I ask people, is an atheist somebody who doesn't believe a God exists, most people are going to be okay with that.
Yeah, maybe most people would be okay with that.
Excuse me, I haven't gotten to talk for a while. I'm talking now. I would like to change up the analogy a little bit because one blade of grass or another, I mean, whether there's an even number or an odd number is not a very complicated proposition. I'd like to switch up the analogy. Have you received some of those emails that say that there's like a Nigerian prince who's died and left you millions of dollars?
Is he on?
You know what I'm talking about?
You're on. You're on the air, Nicholas. Go ahead.
Have I received one of those? Fortunately, no.
No, but you've heard of them, right? They send you mails saying, like, you won $9 million in the English lottery or something, right here to claim your prize. I mean, you know, it's spam. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, if you received one of those messages, would you believe that you were the long-lost relative of this Nigerian prince who was promising to give you, like, millions of dollars, no strings attached?
Probably not, but the proposition would still have to be either true or false.
Right, but the fact that you believe that that you don't believe in this Nigerian prince doesn't mean that you've conclusively proven that that prince doesn't exist and that you're not his relative, right?
Right.
Right. So you're taking a position of basically tentative disbelief, which is, I do not believe in the presence of these millions of dollars. Yes, these millions of dollars either exist or do not exist and are owed to me or not owed to me.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it because I don't have a good reason to trust this guy, right?
I believe that in that case I would not believe it, but not because I have evidence one way or the other, simply because from the point of view of, you know, like a game theoretic point of view, I have a lot to lose and, you know, potentially very little to gain.
Well, and essentially, I mean, it doesn't even have to do with gaining or losing things. We could, I mean, in fact, you do have quite a lot to gain if this claim is true.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, if the claim is true, but again, you know, I don't have evidence one way or the other, so I can't assign a large probability to my acquiring that money.
So give that man a prize. That is exactly the atheist position. It's not, I am certain there is no God. It's, there's either a God or there's not, but this is a pretty unlikely thing to claim, and I'm not going to take the position of believing it. Just like the Nigerian prince. That's what you're saying.
Now you've gone a step further, and you've outdone yourself, because now you've claimed that it's a pretty unlikely claim. I don't pretend to know one way or the other. I'm not an agnostic, but I would say that, you know.
Well, how would you determine if it's likely or not? If you cared about that question.
Precisely. That's precisely my point, is that, you know, I don't know why you would make that additional claim.
But how would you assign some kind of positive likelihood to it? I mean, in a vacuum, without having any evidence, you don't have any reason to think that something is likely to be true.
Well, I think you are committing, you know, there's a problem there in that reasoning, namely that just because you don't have evidence for an ontological claim, like something exists, like God, that there could be no reason for believing it. Of course, there could be reasons. They just wouldn't be.
Okay, what are they?
Wait, they wouldn't be what?
What?
They just wouldn't be the sort of reasons that would be acceptable, for example, in a scientific framework.
So they wouldn't be good reasons.
No, actually, you're doing a disservice to the sciences by saying that, because you have to understand the limitations of science in order to use science properly.
So what would be a limitation of science that you would use in trying to determine if something exists?
What would be an example of a good non-scientific reason to believe something is more to the point.
Right, yeah, I think that is a better way of stating it.
Yeah, so belief in something, and I'm not saying that this is my position, but I could understand it. Belief in something, you know, could be because you have a lot of worldly evidence. You've gone around and you've gathered all of this evidence, but there could be other kinds.
Wait, what kind of worldly? Wait, what sort of worldly evidence wouldn't be testable?
Well, look, I'm trying to get away from that. I'm saying that's one way that you could approach it.
I know you are.
scientifically you could accumulate data, you know.
What kind of reasons would be unscientific reasons that would be good reasons to believe that a thing exists?
I would like to answer you if you let me. So so a belief could pivot, for example, on wishful thinking, on a desire.
That's not a good reason.
Well, let me finish. The reason that I say that is because what is rational for a human being to do is what promotes his welfare, what maximizes his welfare. And a person's welfare is not just contingent on going around asking scientific questions. It's also contingent on asking questions which are important outside of science, maybe on a spiritual level. And somebody could you'd have to do the studying here. I haven't done the studies. I don't have the data. But
wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I understand I'm interrupting you. But you used a word that I don't understand. You said on a spiritual level, and I need spiritual defined for me.
Well, I have no interest in defining it because I don't know what it means myself. But some people.
Then I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, look, we can both understand this. Some people claim that they're spiritual, and some people.
And I don't know what they mean.
I don't know what they mean either.
Okay, so they're talking nonsense, is what we're saying.
Well, then we could go the Lewis Carroll route and say that if it has no meaning, then it saves us the world of trouble because we don't have to find meaning in it. But
that's what I'm getting to think about this call.
If the good reason for belief outside of science is nonsense, then, yeah, I don't know what the point is of going further with this.
I'm sorry. You can call back in another time. It's just we're running out of time, and we don't want to take it all up with this one call. Especially if we can save a world of trouble.
Yeah.
Why not? All right. This may take up the entire rest of the show, which is like 10 minutes. Here's Steve in Brisbane, Australia.
You're on
How
the
are
air.
you?
Good morning. How are you?
What?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, they've got you
you're a
very
bit
loud,
too
in
loud.
fact.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's sorry, I'm using Skype to call from. Here it's good morning, so I'll say good morning or good afternoon to you. My question is, due to the complexity of the universe, with that point and everything within it, does that point to the evidence of a creative designer as opposed to everything just happening by mere chance?
What?
He's asking if he's giving us the cosmological argument.
Oh, is that all? I'm inclined to just say go to cosmological argument at ironchariots.org.
Okay.
And to be fair, Iron Chariots is our official wiki, so he's not just sending you to somebody else.
Right.
He's actually sending you to our informational wiki that offers counter-apologetics. The argument you're offering is called the cosmological argument, and there are counter-arguments to that are available. And I don't know which ones you may or may not be familiar with, so I think what Russell's saying is we can start from scratch and start going down the road of hitting all the arguments against the cosmological argument, or you can go and look this up and then call back later once you've looked at the counter-arguments and you have an idea of what you like or don't like about them.
I also think that intelligent design has become a bit of a hedge position for people who want to say that there's a God but don't want to be pinned down to trying to identify any sort of definable properties of the God. So they just make this nebulous claim that there must be some kind of designer, which when you come down to it begs the question of where the designer came from.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm happy to do that because I'll go and look at some of those websites. Now, I know that we have to understand. Well, before you can choose which deity you're looking at, you've got to just come to the conclusion that there is a deity. As a Christian, I would not be able to prove to you the existence of God or Jesus or anyone like that. However, as an atheist, it's impossible for you to prove that there isn't a God. So this is a common argument that I find when you're talking to people of either views. It's like air. I can't prove to you that air exists, but I can prove the evidence of air through wind and the effects that it has on the environment. However, I can't prove to you God, but maybe some of the evidence out there that the God exists. For example, Moses crossing the Red Sea. when they, excuse me, Mum. When Moses crossed the Red Sea and opened up the waters, and when the Egyptians went through the Red Sea and the waters closed in on them, there's an actual crossing in the Red Sea where you can go and scuba dive, and you got all the ancient Egyptian soldiers and chariots lying on the bottom of this particular crossing site.
Why do you believe
I'm sorry,
this?
you've been misinformed about that one. Check out Skeptic's Dictionary and look that claim up.
Yeah, it's not true. I mean, it's
I'm
simply
actually going to dive there next year.
good, and I hope you bring a camera with you. That I actually do. Please do. I mean, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Right, yeah, send that to us.
Yeah, I will. I do underwater photography.
Okay,
So
well, good luck with that.
It's a passion of mine.
Thanks for calling.
Aw. He was pleasant enough. And thanks, Steve, for calling. Appreciate the call.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Tommy in Florida. Hello.
Hello. Hi, guys. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys so very much for the show. About 4 years ago, you guys and Richard Dawkins' book, The God's Illusion, helped me break the chains of Christianity.
Oh, glad to hear it.
What I want to talk to you guys about today is...
we were told recently we don't do that.
Yeah, that's right. We just got email like yesterday saying, you're so mean to callers, nobody will ever listen to you.
So thank you for saying that on the air. And please go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
What I wanted to talk about today was I was trying to teach my girlfriend about McCarthyism, and I realized that a lot of the social and political movements that we've been seeing recently actually play into a lot of what we noticed about McCarthyism in the 50s. For example, in January, with Mike Huckabee's letter that was distributed to supposedly thousands of people requesting that that Christianity be upheld as the national religion, that he tried to appeal to the masses to try to reinstate Christianity as a national religion. He tried to demonize the left and basically support the right and the conservatives as near angelic. And in the same time period, in January, when he sent out his letter, also Representative J. Randy Forbes on January 26th proposed a resolution to Congress. It's called House Congress Resolution 13, and its purpose is, it says here on the Library of Congress, it is to reaffirm that "In God We Trust" is the official motto of the United States, and to support and encourage the public display of the national motto in all public buildings, public schools, and other government institutions. The last major action that has been taken on it was actually this month on the 2nd, November 2nd.
I think we're in violent agreement about all this.
Yeah.
So, did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to know what your take was on this, as far as do you believe that in our next political election that we might start seeing more things that happened in the 50s as far as persecution?
I don't know. I am a non-profit. Some people think that politics is like a pendulum and keeps swinging one way and then the other, and maybe we're due for a correction, or maybe it gets worse and worse. I can't guess.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard to tell, especially while there's so many candidates currently on the right, that you just don't even know who they're going to end up running at this point. I don't anyway. I have no idea.
Right. All I can say is, if this bothers you, then get involved in politics on your local level and
Activate.
encourage other people to get involved in politics on their local level.
And I also wanted to ask you. I noticed that in Austin, you guys have an atheist community. Yet, however, I've lived here for half a year now, and I've researched, I've gone to public offices. I can't find anything, any sort of atheist group in Panama City, and I'm wondering, how exactly would you propose that I could start something like this? Because I don't know any other atheists here, and I'm trying to build a support structure.
Are you like near a university or at a university or anything like that?
I am actually, I'm a freshman in college.
There you
Oh,
go.
that is perfect.
There's your
You will
community.
never have a better time to socialize in your entire life.
Yeah. You tell them you want to start a skeptic group?
Contact the Secular Student Alliance. That's
Yeah.
one thing that I would start with. They have like experience with starting up local college groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Secular Student Alliance.
Thank you guys very
Sure,
much.
sure.
Yeah, that
Good
would
luck.
be my main thing. And you know, if you've got like an alternative newspaper there, just put out a message
Yeah.
saying.
Well, sometimes
you
there's
know,
bulletin
hang out
boards too. You
Yeah.
can post that you're meeting at a coffee shop. And
Atheists
skeptics
get
want-
together, hang out at a
Yeah.
coffee shop. Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for letting me on the show, and I really want to
Thank
thank
you.
you guys.
Best of luck. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have only a minute for another caller. Should we try or not?
Quick.
Okay. Emily, I'm sorry. We'll only talk to you for a minute or so, but if you hold after the show,
We
then
can do
we'll
after
pick you up
show.
again.
Okay.
Emily in Boston. Hi.
Hi. So, I took a comparative religion class 2 years ago, and at the end of it, I was sure I was an atheist. But at the very beginning of it, like the first day of class, my grandfather died, and I wasn't sure I was an atheist yet. And, but like at his memorial service, they were like, he didn't really believe in God. He was Jewish, and they had this rabbi from a Reformed church come and stuff. But like, you know, he didn't believe in God. They didn't want much God stuff at the funeral thing. And then later, once I became an atheist and my dad and my brother were on board with atheism with me, all of our extended family that are Jewish were very awkward about, like, bringing it up. Because nobody really believes in God, but they're not sure, like, they haven't, like, thought about it, or they don't want to, like, make people upset by ever, like, telling their Christian friends or whatever that they don't believe. And when I was so, like, excited about stuff.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. Please do hold on. Do you have a quick thing to say to the audience before it's done?
Not really.
No, I'm good.
Well, I mean, I think that
Thanks to the crew.
life after death is wishful thinking, and I wish it were true too. And it can be uncomfortable to deal with people. And I'm sorry, we'll talk more after the show's over. But thank you, crew. Thanks everybody
After
for
show
watching.
dinner, El Arroyo.
Yeah, El Arroyo, great place, 5th Street, and see you next time.